All right, it's time for a Sunday edition of That Davis Show. We're giving you our Bears preview since the Bears are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field tomorrow or today. You're probably going to get this Monday morning. So tonight, I should say, actually. So the Bears take on Pittsburgh tonight. I had the Bears beating the 49ers, and I have the Bears beating the Steelers, and I'm sticking to it. All right. Not quitting. Also, we're going to jump into some discussion about the Chicago Bulls, who got their first consecutive losses out the way. They're on a losing streak is what I'm trying to say, to the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid
helped Doc Rivers get to 1,000 from 998 real quick.
The funny thing is I watched the second half of that game, and later, like about 20 or 30 minutes, I saw on the ticker where it said Doc got to his his thousandth or his
thousandth career regular season win.
And I was like, oh, it would be against his Chicago team. It's his hometown team, right? It made it even worse if they lost. The Bulls did have a chance to come back, but the real point is they've been playing a lot of comeback kid, and that's going to come back to burn you. So I definitely want to talk a little bit about some of the things watching those Bulls losses to the 76ers this last week. And then, of course, we got to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Bears. Now, real quick, I saw a friend of the show, Raghul, had on, was it Benjamin Albright?
Mm-hmm.
And Benjamin Albright, who's been on the show in the past out of Denver, was talking about the fact that he's heard that the Bears are already looking at replacements for Matt Nagy. So we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. And you know what? Let's kick this off and let's go off top with one of the biggest topics that happened this past week. And that's, of course, Aaron Rodgers catching COVID after really tricking everyone into believing that he was vaccinated or quote unquote immunized, as he put it back in August. With his tricky self.
Right. I am immunized.
Right. And with the quack medicine that he was coming to the NFL with. Listen, if you look at our text thread, a lot of the guys are like chopping at the bit and fed up with Aaron Rodgers. To me, to be honest, it's kind of par for the course of who Aaron Rodgers is.
Yeah.
So I really don't feel any certain kind of way. I feel like he wasn't being grown up with saying that, was telling the truth. Either say you don't want to talk about it or it's your personal information, but there's no reason to lie, and particularly about something that's important as COVID. Now, as I said on here, you know, anybody knows I'm vaccinated, you're vaccinated. So you know what line I follow on, but I still believe that if there's a situation where I wouldn't want to be forced into doing something, that's the same way I feel about these people. And there is some type of hesitancy I've had with thinking about the history of medicine in this country, let alone against people of color like myself. So I'm just giving you full disclosure why I'm not the biggest, like, you damn idiot, you stupid mother, like why you don't see me out there, because I think about if I was in that situation, I was worried about someone putting something in my body that I didn't necessarily trust, people kind of pressuring me into doing it. So again, I'm immunized, but that's one of the reasons I'm not the person that's to get off my lawn, get the damn vaccination. What vax gang you bi anyway. So Aaron Rodgers, we come to find out, is out for 10 days. And he lied, and the NFL kind of gave us some details. They're going to look into were there any violations by the Packers as far as allowing him to do things that players who are not vaccinated, since he's considered unvaccinated,
which they did.
Yeah, and of course, just you see it in the media room when the fact that he's not masked up and he's in there in there with reporters that have to be vaccinated. Listen, it's BS. I would come down on the Packers, but the Packers are in a catch-22 with the quarterback that has their feet over the fire as far as, I don't want to be here anymore. He basically came to an agreement. I got them to come to the agreement that this will be his last season, or they'll come to some agreement at the end of the season as far as trading him, or will he remain? I'm sure if he remains, there'll be some type of contract extension. So he's getting everything that he wants. So what are they really going to be able to tell him as far as you're not following vaccination protocols, especially when you're fearing that anything that you do will be held against you as far as him wanting to remain with the Green Bay Packers or forcing a trade to get out of Green Bay. Listen, I mean, the Packers definitely have some culpability on this, but this primarily falls in the lap of Aaron Rodgers, and also I'll tell you somebody else who this falls in the lap of the league, because the league knew he wasn't vaccinated in August.
And
him being one of the highest profile players in the NFL, they see every weekend that he's at those press conferences without a mask on his face. They haven't said anything, and they haven't fined him. So that's outside of Aaron Rodgers, a lot of culpability falls on the league for not doing anything because they clearly see and they know. Now, I'm sure the league is like, okay, that's the Packers' backyard. You know what the Packers are going through. And on top of that, you know the people outside of that are working in that building, not just the media, that Aaron Rodgers is putting in danger. Listen, you to a certain degree, and I'm not saying this is serious. I'm not saying this is for real. But you could say that team's latest COVID outbreak happened because of Aaron Rodgers. Now, it probably didn't, but you could say that him not being immunized, he could have brought COVID into that building, and all those Packer players and coaches that had to sit the last couple of weeks to look at the QB room, look at the wide receiver room the week before could be due to him. Now, again, it's not, but I'm just pointing out some of the things that could take place because you're giving someone this fringe benefits as far as not following the rules when it comes to something as important as COVID. So to me, listen, Aaron Rodgers, that's some whole shit. You know, I wasn't the person out here. I wasn't Stephen A. Smith on Kyrie, so it's not that I don't have to be Stephen A. Smith on Aaron Rodgers, but at least Kyrie stood up and said pretty much, I'm not coming in. I mean, Kyrie basically followed the rules, even though following the rule by Kyrie is like, let me see if I can get these checks on the side. But still, he stood up and he took the bullets where Aaron Rodgers dodged the bullets. And has been dodging the bullets and making it seem like he's on the side of vaccination when actually it seems like he's on the side of what some people would consider quack medicine.
Yeah, that's a great point about the league. I didn't even think about that. Like, they knew about this from day one. How does that not come through at all? Like, hey, I mean, it's an easy one. Both sides, NFLPA, NFL, you got to be about the COVID and not spreading it because it's going to stop game checks. It's going to stop everything. They got to make sure that they're taking care of everybody and not just allow Green Bay to just police themselves when they clearly know something's wrong up there,
right?
Or that protocol is not being followed that they laid down.
Right.
It's not like Green Bay put the protocol for COVID down.
Mm-hmm.
It was the NFL. So that's a great point. And I mean, you just, again, took the words out of my mouth with the Kyrie stuff. Like, that's my biggest problem with the Aaron Rodgers stuff. If you want to pretend that you've got this new age medicine or whatever that's going to work, he says he's got a protein allergy to what's in the Pfizer and the Moderna one, and he doesn't want to take the Johnson & Johnson one. So maybe
what did he say? Why he didn't want to take the Johnson? I haven't seen his interview. Why did he say why he didn't want to take the Johnson?
Well, it's the same way we tell D why we don't want to take that Johnson.
Did he say he didn't want to take the
everyone doesn't want to. No one wants to take Johnson & Johnson.
The skin so soft formula vaccination.
What is it? The sea salt in the syringe? Yeah, I don't even blame Aaron Rodgers for not wanting to take Johnson.
It doesn't sound technical enough. You're like, you want this Pfizer, this Moderna, but we also got this J&J in the back.
Yeah. 2 doses for me, please.
Can I get my second one on the side?
Yeah. Can I just get it twice at least? Feel better?
Exactly.
Double the sea salt?
Oh, man.
And maybe he's allergic to this protein. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so I don't know how much.
How do you know you're allergic? Like, wait, now the mDRNA. How does he know he's allergic to this?
I think it's one of the proteins that's listed as the ingredient within the vaccination he's allergic to.
Why didn't he get the Moderna Light?
They both have it.
They don't have it. The Moderna Light.
I don't even know about this Moderna.
Oh yeah, without the protein, it's like it's like Splenda.
Zero.
Exactly. The Zima of vaccination.
Moderna 0. Less protein for your allergies.
Exactly. Oh man, we're terrible. We're terrible. Go ahead. As far as
and I mean, he says he wants to be a father, and he doesn't want complications with this vaccination. I don't know how legitimate that is. But if you're going to be this guy, stand up and don't be like on the Pat McAfee show, like, F the media, I don't care. Well, you obviously did in training camp.
Right.
Otherwise, you would have just did what Cole Beasley did, or any of the
what
others that said, no, I'm not
Kirk
taking
Cousins,
the vaccine.
Carson Wentz,
Kyrie, like you said,
right.
anybody. Like
right.
they said they're not going to do it. They stood up. They took
Bradley
it.
Beal.
And what did they say? What their reasoning? We have to do more research, or we don't know enough about this. Like that's always the reasoning. That's literally his reasoning. Why didn't you just say that from day one?
But also, if you legitimately have an allergic reaction to this, you're allergic to it, you should have said that. People would have understood if it's true.
Well, he submitted it to the league, but they denied based on their research and findings that his excuse or reasoning to not get the vaccination wasn't merit. So that's why he would have to have it.
You know how many HRs were ready for that? They've been passing that all around HRs. Like, listen, when they come in here with this allergic to, that was like the first one that some rich person came. Listen, some doctor, I'm going to sign this and say you're allergic to the protein. That way you won't have to worry about it. Like,
and like I think like Aaron Rodgers is like, oh, check out this study, check out that. Just because people do a study doesn't mean it's just a conclusive medical opinion. Like, I get where people are coming from. Like we've talked about this in the past. Like it's scary a little bit with the vaccination. We don't know the long-term effects, but we're also doing it as a species for each other. There is that element there. Like we're all going in on it together so that, we can just move on past it. And if there is going to be some long-term stuff, there's going to be long-term stuff anyways for the people that are dying from COVID that, without the vaccination, it'd be much worse.
True, but on the plays devil's advocate, if there are going to be long-time ramifications, I'd rather be the person that didn't take the vaccine. To be honest, and I'm vaxxed. Let's be. I mean, like this is the problem.
But that's the point. It's like it's not a clean-cut decision either way. You're taking a risk,
right? But since you have to join a gang, it's the same thing. Once I join this gang, I rep this gang, and I will kill anybody that does not correspond with this gang. And
how about football team? You have to do that in the football.
It doesn't have to be like listen. It needs to be like that as far as taking the vaccination and securing ourselves, but how we're treating one another and how we're calling each other out of our names when there's legitimacy on both sides. There's legitimacy to the fact, and I know that you've never had a collaborative effort on a vaccine like this as far as the world working together. But still, let's keep it real. When you look at it, that usually to check out the efficacy and how the ramifications, long-term ramifications of vaccinations will take a decade. You know what I'm saying? And I get that it was urgent. It's shut down the world, and the last thing you want is economies freezing and everything going along with that, and people not to be able to touch and communicate and stuff like that. But it was hastened. And again, I'm vaxxed, but I don't feel like I have to hit you upside the head because I get your fears because it's a fear of mine. Full disclosure, they just made it so 5-year-olds can get it. My daughter's not vaccinated yet. We're holding up on that for a second. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like
you got to take these. You have to take some time to decide on some of these.
Listen, and Afton's like, what if it, reproduction wise, is part of one of the reasons that she mentioned as far as for her. And I mean, again, we didn't care about the boys' gonads, but still, no, we did wait. We were hesitant, but just still. So I'm saying I get it, but we're in our own echo chambers. And we're not listening. And I get even with listening, it's like, yeah, but it's better if you get it. It is better if you get it and I have it. But still, and you understand why some of these people are hesitant. Some of them, not all. Some of them just have BS excuses and it's political. If it's political, why are you not taking this vaccine? That's ridiculous. Because even the other side, the person that you were following initially on the other side is vaccinated. All right. So just think about that. And when he tells you all to get vaccinated and you boo him, you're not paying attention that he's vaccinated. All right. There's a reason he's vaccinated. Like real talk, so if you're doing it because of that doesn't make sense to me. I'm just trying to use logic, just trying to use sound logic when I think about anything and balance logic. And even though I may be biased, I try to recognize my biasness to work through it or to at least process and come to some logical reasoning at the end of it. Is all I usually try to do. Which
is why we can't be mad at Aaron Rodgers for not wanting Johnson & Johnson.
Facts. I can't be mad. Now that we can't be mad at. That sound science right there. We're not getting that Johnson & Johnson deal, Ryan. I know that right now. We're not getting that. All right, man. Let's move off and let's jump into the body of this show. And that was last night, Saturday night, the Bulls here in the United Center lost to the 76ers. They were down. I came in the third. I was going to start and watch the whole game. And I came in the third. It's like, Ken, you don't always have to do the whole game. Just take it from the third on out, right? Really good game, entertaining. The Bulls were down. The Bulls took the lead when I was watching, because in the fourth quarter they took the lead by
Derrick Jones slam.
Yeah, they took the lead by maybe 3 or 4, and then it was 1, and then they were down again. Joel Embiid was doing his dizzle against Vooch. I mean, from the inside and the outside.
He's been a real thorn in the Bulls' side for a long time.
Nine straight victories versus the Bulls since 2019, I believe, or something like that. 2018, sometime around then. It's the 9th straight victory. Because remember,
I think somewhere Wendell Carter was sweating, just feeling that heat that Joel Embiid was giving Vooch on Saturday.
He woke up out of a cold sweat. Joel initially didn't, because due to injuries, even when he started to get healthy, didn't play against the Bulls. Those games would be like on the back end or back and back, or maybe the front end and the back and the back. But since being healthy, he's owned the Chicago Bulls. Doc Rivers, as we were talking about, got his 1,000th win versus his home city, even though it's from Maywood, but his home city. We will accept him as a Chicagoland. Look, one of the best things about this Bulls team is the fact that they have enough firepower that they can come back when they're behind, but they're behind every game now, and that's going to start coming back to hurt them, especially as times where they get into more defensive lulls, and the gaps that they have to come back from are too vast for them to close in on those teams that are ahead of them. One thing I know you wanted to talk about was Vooch, and the Vooch finding his role. I was on Sean and Maya and Sean Davis from Sneaks and Squeaks, and also Lucky Left Hand podcast from ESPN Chicago was on there. We were talking about it, and I was saying that for me, Vooch needs to hasten his pace. He needs to stop. One, when he gets the ball, just shoot it. Like he just some quick action, because Vooch, one, tries to spend too much time trying to back his man down, and right now it's not working. I'm sure later on in the season, I'm not telling you to abandon the post entirely, but you need to go action, counteraction, or action, rather than trying to get yourself set and take advantage of the fact that your man isn't set yet. And that's one thing that's sticking out to me about Vooch. I just need him quick action and step, trying to go through, methodically go through whatever he's trying to do to get to a spot. One thing that I did think about with Vooch was this. Vooch, in essence, in a way, reminds me of one of the biggest, unfortunately, one of the biggest free agency signings in Chicago Bull history over the last 10 years. And that's Carlos Boozer. And we talked about Carlos Boozer. Maybe I mentioned this because you were talking about the rebounds.
Give me that, Joe.
Joe. We talking about Joakim Noah, because think about how efficient. Now, Vooch isn't efficient right now, but offensively, Boozer's efficiency was through the roof as a Bull, primarily through like the first 4 years. His efficiency was crazy because they knew to pull his ass out. Like, one thing Thibs knew was get him in, get you what you need out of him, but I'm also going to pull you. I'm going to put Taj in, for defensive prowess and so on and so forth. Or at that time, remember, Amir Sheik was on that team too back in those days. Mm-hmm. So, but that's what I look at Vooch as, being a Booze in a way, where defensively, there's just going to be some issues, but what you need for him to do, and again, back to my initial statement, as far as quickly getting to the point and just scoring the ball rather than methodically trying to go through it, because you're not there yet. And on top of that, coming from, you're used to everything running through you from Orlando, and now you're more of the fourth option. You know what I'm saying? Third, fourth option, where you don't get a lather and be in the ability to get into your groove. You just need to listen on those pick and pops. You need to just take the shot. Like, there's too many of those threes where he gets it and he's looking to sit there and still initiate more offense as far as moving the ball around. No. Take the shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, just take. He has to just set and take the shot. A lot of times in pick and rolls and screens, he gets the ball and he starts to dribbling and starts to trying to get into the post. No. Take the shot. If you're going to take the jump hook, take the baby hook, but just do it and get into it. And one thing I know Shauna mentioned was treat him like Bill Cartwright. And for Brian, I know you were young. The Bulls used to, at the beginning of the game, they used to run like the three first plays down the court was going to Bill Cartwright. And it's just old basketball. Get your big involved early. That way you won't lose him throughout the game. You know what I'm saying? And just something like that for Vooch. And you can do that periodically during the game, but it's also how you stagger the minutes. You can start trying to make sure you stagger the minutes against, and I know you may want him in due to the fact that you don't have defensive centers on him just because of his size with the starter, but you may need to stagger his minutes and let him get off against the backup. You know what I'm saying? To take advantage of the weakness of the backup rather than to have him always just go up against the starter when the starter is always in the game.
I like that last point you just made there because, I mean, Kobe White's getting closer. Maybe you stagger with him and Kobe White on the second unit where he can be a little bit more facilitator, a little bit more aggressive offensively. And with Kobe White and that speed, maybe it creates a little bit more matchups that he doesn't have with maybe Zach and DeMar running the pick and roll with them. I also love what you said, too, getting him going early. That would be great to see a little bit more of that. I feel like, and this is not to compare the teams or the players, he's almost like Chris Bosh on that Miami Heat team when they came together, where he really had to adjust his game the most between LeBron and Dwayne Wade.
Great point.
I feel like that's where Vooch has to be. And it's really what you said. Just be more aggressive. Doesn't mean stop passing the ball and being a facilitator because that's a strength of his. But just he needs to have more of that aggressive mindset when it comes to scoring, because if he looks to score a little bit more and then just bees that third kind of facilitator, that extra piece, almost like what Joakim Noah was for the offense, just that extra little guy that can create a little bit of playmaking because of his passing, that's great. But we need Vooch to be that scoring efficiency guy. Like you mentioned, Carlos Boozer. He wasn't great on defense, but he was very efficient on the boards, and he was very efficient offensively for the most part. Maybe not all the time in the playoffs, but during the regular season, Boozer was a very accountable offensive player for you. That's what you need Vooch to be. Just be that extra punch on offense, not even to what Boozer was, because you don't need him to be the second scorer. You just need him to be the third, and then add that little extra rebounding, playmaking, be what he is defensively, which I think is okay. I think he's a little bit better than Boozer defensively.
Oh yeah,
but
he definitely just height wise, he's better than Boozer.
That too.
Boozer was 6'7" basically.
But he needs that efficiency on offense, I think. That's the big thing right now that we're missing from Vooch's game. Oh.
I don't know if that was Tua. Yeah, no, Tua. I didn't think that was Tua. That dude looked blacker.
No, Tua's out. Tua's
yeah,
out.
I see. I was like, damn, Tua got a tan. That might have son.
Went back to Hawaii for a vacation.
What was I about to say? Also, real quick on the point you just made, I think you made a real good point with Chris Bosh getting to Miami and how it reminds you of the situation with Vooch. Going along with that thought process and that thinking, I should say, he needs to be like Kevin Love in Cleveland, as far as outside shot man, in between guy. You know, just like what Kevin Love did with Kyrie, how he had to adjust. And Kevin Love mentioned that he had to go through what Chris Bosh had to go through. I think Chris Bosh said Kevin Love was going to have to was going to be him as far as making the most sacrifice. That's what Vooch is going to have to learn. And Vooch is going to have to learn within this offense his spots. And hopefully it comes earlier rather than later. But they do have enough time to figure this out. And I hate to say that. Sooner or later, injury is going to help that, because one of the big dogs is going to be out for a period of time, and you're going to need Vooch to have to step up, unfortunately. And it may be because Zach sits because of that thumb. It may just be, you know, as far as just some soft tissue injuries from Lamar. I'm not wishing that on anybody, but just it's basketball. You know what I'm saying? And sooner or later, attrition is going to cause you to have to make sure that you're getting the best out of most of the players that are on that team. So I'm still excited. I mean, they still have the second best record in the East, because they were tied last night.
Now, because I
thought they were tied last night, or they were first and second.
Because I know Miami's now 7-2, so they're below Miami, and I think they're below the 76ers.
They're below the 76ers.
So that's 3.
Okay, so I'll take that.
Yeah,
you know, and also.
But let me. I want to get your opinion on the Kobe White factor. Like, is this something that could be a big thing, or is this just kind of like a whatever thing?
It's not a whatever thing. It's not having Kobe White with no. Well, I don't want to say that. With less responsibility than what he's had.
Because we're talking just a total second unit guy, and that second unit needs a little bit more scoring punch.
That's what I'm saying. In the past, you're trying to force this square peg into this round hole as far as trying to make Kobe White a pure point guard or more of a point guard, right? Mm-hmm. And now he can come in and be a scorer, and you have Ayo to be the point for the most part. So even though Io's playing off ball, you both
sub
of them
Caruso and Ball staggering their
great
minutes.
point. Exactly. So no, I think the Kobe thing is an asset because even though this team is doing well, they still need more scoring, and their 3-point their 3-point efficiency is trash. They take the least amount of 3-pointers. So that's another reason to have Kobe back. Let's not forget what Kobe last year has started turning himself into a much better outside shooter. So no, I think you need Kobe White. He's not a player to look on moving off from. You need a scoring punch, and it goes to what I was saying a second ago. Players are going to get hurt, and you're going to need guys that can put the ball in the rim. Now, I mean, we all know you need a rim protector, but at least you have enough long bodies when you're talking about Jones and you're talking about Javonte Green.
God,
and you're talking
can he
about,
jump, by the way?
Right. You know what I'm saying? And you're talking about Brown. Like, you have enough in between guys, but now it gives you a small mini guy that can go up there and score. Not mini. Kobe is 6'4", 6'5". It gives you what you need when it comes to that scoring punch and depth off the bench. So
and I love that, with that second unit with Kobe back, they can go Caruso, Ayo, and Kobe. I mean, all three are 6'4". It's not like you got a 5'11" guy that you got to balance between them, and you're like, man, we're way small.
Or you play Caruso or Ayo at the 3. I mean, as far as defensively is what I'm saying. They can defend threes in that situation. But yeah, that's a great point too. They did provide them. I mean, that's the thing. And I was talking to Sean Davis about what this team tells us about Arturas and Mark and their desires as far as basketball. And he said positionless basketball. And that's basically what they have. They have a team. They have a team where you can switch a lot of everything, basically. Now, usually when you hear somebody say that, you're talking about defense, but I'm just saying as far as who is the playmaker, who's the initiator. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of guys on this. Last year, you had one initiator, basically. You know what I'm saying? And now, and it was Zach initiate, Zach score, Zach defend, and now you have 4 initiators or 4 guys who can initiate, basically. You know what I'm saying? And that definitely helps you, and it hurts teams, especially if you're willing not to be simple and predictable. If you take advantage of this versatility to be unpredictable and not go your turn, my turn, your turn, it's very hard for teams to defend you.
Yeah, I like where they're at. I think, like you said, there's going to be that improvement. There's going to be some injuries that happens that they're going to have to work through, but I think they have enough scoring in general that they can sustain some injuries just depending on how many and to who. But it's not like they're just totally relying, like you said, on Zach to do everything. Otherwise, what are we going to do offensively? We have no organizer. We have no scorer. We don't know what we're doing. But I guess my big thing with them is just how soon they can maybe hit another level with chemistry, because that's what we're hoping can hit another level. I think we've probably seen as good as DeMar can play and as Zach can play and what they're going to kind of be all year long, but maybe not together.
Well, this is another level is them doing it in the half court consistently. They have to figure out.
To me, that's just chemistry, right? Like just getting used to
it's
each
definitely
other.
It's definitely chemistry, getting used to each other. That's the key. But that's the big chunk, because playoff basketball, you're not going to be running up and down the court as much. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say it's eliminated.
Unless you're just getting a lot of steals.
But still, you're not. It's going to come down to half court basketball in the playoffs.
It always slows down.
It always slows down, and that's what and that's where Vooch really has to be that dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's going to be like, you got to look at it in some regard. And I'm not saying it's an apples to apples. You have to think Mark Eversley wants some of the stuff that you can get out of Nikola Jokic, out of Vucevic, as far as initiating offense. Now, he's not this walking triple-double, MVP that Nikola Jokic is, but Nikola Jokic's ability to pass the ball puts pressure on other opposing teams' defenses. And you want to start seeing that and seeing those guys dive and move around him, making it harder for teams to necessarily D them up in the half-court setting, you know.
Man, is the Joker, did he sign a deal? Can Arturas snag that dude over here?
Yeah, he signed that deal. Like, I think he got a new deal like a year before last.
Come on, Joker.
Yeah, he's not going.
Arturas is the one that found you.
Think about it. Also, that deal had to be triggered up because he got the MVP. He had to have a Derrick Rose. That's a Derrick Rose clause has to be triggered in that contract from him winning MVP. So yeah. So all right, let's switch over to the gridiron as we both sit with the red zone in the background. I never get to do a show and watch football, so this is great.
I know.
Right, and there's so much light in here, you can't see the television flashing behind me, so it works. It works because I usually have to cover it up or usually I turn the television off. Yeah, the Bears are in Pittsburgh tonight, I should say, because you guys are going to hear this today. The Bears in Pittsburgh tonight at Heinz Field. Taking on the Steelers team who had somewhat lofty expectations if you weren't paying attention to football. Offensive line, even though you have Najee Harris running, the offensive line has been decimated from players leaving and players getting injured. You had Villanueva going to the Ravens. I forget who else. You also lost Pouncey, and I believe.
And they got rid of a lot of guys, too.
They lost their left tackle, too. They lost their left tackle, I believe.
That was Villanueva.
That was Villanueva? Okay.
Yeah,
that was Villanueva.
They lost their right tackle, though, as well.
Okay. So, listen, a team that has a really good defense, and that'll be one thing that you're worried about facing the Bears, especially with the rookie quarterback.
Well, they're really good scoring defense and a top 15 or top 16 both in pass and rush, they're 13-12. So they give up some yards, but they don't give up points.
But who doesn't give up yards nowadays? For the most part.
Well, that's the big thing. The number one defense nowadays is scoring. Who do you keep out of the end zone? Because sure, it's great to limit yards, but if they're scoring 30 points, who gives a damn?
Right. I mean, the NFL is built on the most part out of getting yards. Now, maybe your defense is proficient in stopping teams in the pass well or stopping teams in the run well, but usually whatever one you do the best, the other one teams are going to take it more advantage of because you can't do both. Now, that doesn't mean you're not kicking ass, but you're usually giving up a little bit more either in the pass game or in the run game. So listen, Bears have one of the best run games in the league, and David Montgomery is back.
Yes, he is. Back. We got Thunder and Lightning. How about this dynamic duo?
Now you have an excellent 1-2 punch in David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Not to mention you still have Damian Williams there, but
he is out for this game, though.
Thank you. But we didn't need him. But I hate to say it, Damian, but you've been supplanted, buddy.
Yes.
You can take advantage of this run game that the Bears have and initiate the play action. I feel like the Bears should win this game. I felt like this since the beginning of the year. This is Ben Roethlisberger's farewell season. I mean, maybe he'll come back.
And he's hurting, and he's going to play, but he's not 100%.
So what y'all gonna do when we get all up on Ben Roethlisberger and beat his old ass to a pump with his sick self? I said it. You know what I'm talking about. He deserves it all. But no, I just don't. I don't think this team is a much well coached team, a better coached team than the Bears. But I think the Bears just have better assets than what the Steelers have from top to bottom right now. You know what I'm saying? I honestly do. I think the one thing the Steelers have better than the Bears, they have a better wide receiver core than the Bears. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like, and I mean, they got you got Watt. So you got one of the best defensive players.
And I'm worried because Eddie Jackson's doubtful, and we saw
what happened. But at least, and you have that excellent receiving core. But at least it's not a situation where it
happens in the game. Like you can actually prepare for it this time,
right? But I guess this is what I'm trying to say. Ben Roethlisberger is throwing that ball out about what 2 seconds. I think he's averaging like 2 seconds as far as getting rid of the ball. So it's not going to be a lot of time for them to set up big plays. That still doesn't mean big plays won't take place from guys just missing or them, scheming it. But at least they're not going to give you 3 steps or even a 7-step drop. It's going to be to get the ball out for the most part. Everything should be in front of you. Just make sure you're not giving away too much space. That's one thing on watching that tape with the Tape Never Lies yesterday. Shout out to Berlissimo, Phil, and Coach O'Phil's pops. Was just some of the depth that like Tayshaun Gibson Sr. was getting. Man, dude was like 25 yards back before the snap. And it was like, and the first was at the 15-yard line. You know what I'm saying? It was just kind of like, what's what's going on here? Like just fundamentally, like one of the things I said this to you earlier, effort was the big thing that stood out to me yesterday. I think in general, if you played any sports, there's going to be some brain cramps. But going on that show yesterday, there were some effort issues where you could tell guys was checking out. You know what I'm saying? And it's one thing where you check out of a play, but when you check out about 4 or 5 plays, that's a trend. You know what I'm saying? And that's the issue. And one of the main guys who was on there was Tayshaun Gibson Sr. And it was glaring. And I know Phil and myself both said this because Phil was like, I'm surprised it's him. And I was like, yeah, from last year, you were satisfied with Tayshaun. I was pleasantly surprised of his play last year coming in because you thought a guy just off the streets from Houston, okay, it's gonna be like high Clinton Dix.
Is that coaching potentially at all, or is it just Tayshaun? Like
some of it is coaching because of holding those guys accountable. Because some of this is because this is the thing too. You don't have to watch tape to see this. You see the effort that Akeem Hicks is doing with a banged up groin, right? And one of the things, analogies I used was Thibs last year and how the defensive players on the string was gone because everyone knows Thibs last year. And Garpax thought by bringing in Fred Hoiberg, you can get everybody to fall back in lockstep. Like, oh, we're going to tell the students, don't listen to the substitute, right? But then when the new teacher comes in, they're going to fall back in line and act accordingly like they did before. And to me, that's what you're getting now with this defense with the lack of accountability. Because I feel like with issues being repeated, all right, with them messing up repeatedly, that's something that another guy comes to a guy and is like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, get your head in the game. We already talked about this week. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? And for me to see guys that are consistently messing up, I feel like there's no accountability, or if there is accountability, they're tuning that person that's holding them accountable out. You know, like that's kind of, and I'll say this too. I think it's hard when there may have not been no accountability from your head coach to now think a rookie defensive coordinator can hold players that he's familiar with in a locker room and move.
Well, we hired a veteran defensive coordinator.
Exactly. Moving up.
Or
like
assistant.
these guys have known him, and you know, and I'm not being disrespectful, but you know, could have in a nice way sunned him in the past, as far as he's the DB's coach or whatever, and now it's like he's cool, but and if him really calling me to task is it's going to necessarily invigorate me to do what needs to be done, I don't see that. But it's hard for him. How is he going to do that when it seems like the head coach doesn't do that? You know what I'm saying? So
he definitely doesn't.
Yeah, so how's he going to pull that off when the head coach doesn't pull that off? You know, compared to a Vic Fangio who has already had, you know, saying this legacy to where you had to respect him. And it didn't work here, but at least Chuck Pagano had, you know, a history and was a head coach, you know, but having a guy that was the quality control guy and work himself up, you know, and particularly in this building, and I could be wrong in this, and I have to ask someone who played in the pros, but how would it be if it was a guy that came from outside of your building that you weren't familiar with, right? And some people will be like, well, it'll be harder for me to take his criticism. Yeah, but since you don't have that familiarity with him, you may not feel slighted as much because you're not feeling like somebody that you cared about said something to you.
Maybe you don't feel as safe. You know, when you're
familiar
with, you feel safe.
Yeah,
that you can mess up. You can do this. You can do that.
Great point, Ryan. I think that's the kicker on top of that. So that's just looking at some of the defense, and everybody make sure you check out the Tape Never Live's Patreons on Saturdays. I had a great time on there yesterday. Make sure you go and check that out. But yeah, that stood out. And I mean, Sean Desai, I feel like is doing a good job. Except last week against the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan showed you why Kyle Shanahan is one of the better play callers in the league. The Bears had nothing in the second half. We don't have to worry about that as much with this Pittsburgh offense. I mean, now, this isn't the Pittsburgh offense we grew up with where it's, you know, running back, cloud of dust, play action. No, this is, we're going to air it out. And we got Najee Harris. But we're going to air this ball out.
And that's the key, right? Like, anytime the Bears defense has been gashed by the run of the opponent, I can't imagine the Bears have won many of those games, if any at all.
No, and I mean
those usually equal losses big time.
the
And
last
last week was a perfect example of it.
last 3 weeks from Green Bay, Tampa, and
And
into
how many games have they lost in a row?
3.
3.
Yeah, I mean their average has been ridiculous as far as what players have averaged. These running backs have averaged these last 3 weeks. We'll see. I mean, Eddie Goldman hasn't been Eddie Goldman. You've known that. Keem
We
Hicks
keep
actually.
hearing how he's getting better, so I want to
Yeah,
see this breakthrough. I
you
don't
need
know.
you need to make sure that Tonga and Blackson is out there, and Mario Edwards Jr. with his knuckleheaded self.
Right. And how much
guy,
can you get from Akeem? Like, how is that growing? I know he's not listed on the injury report, but I can't imagine it's just fine.
dude, I don't care if he misses 3 games for the next 2 years, every year for the next 2 years. I don't think you can let Akeem Hicks go.
He's got so much dog, and he's such a force. That's going to be so hard to replace. I'm kind of with you.
Yeah, I don't think, and Bilal Nichols isn't the answer.
Yeah, I don't think he can be as dominant of a force as Akeem Hicks is.
He's not that type of. You're asking for. He's not going to gain that type of natural country strength. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That
like I want to sign him and keep him because he's definitely a starter in the NFL. But Akeem Hicks is a difference maker type starter in the NFL at that same position.
But yeah, the question will be, and you mentioned it, and it's crazy that we get on Bojack, but you can tell just the defensive backfield needs Bojack and his mistakes, because they lack his athleticism, but they also lack some of the versatility and play call that Sean Desai can do with having Bojack back there because of some of the stuff you can do compared to like Tease Tabor. He's not getting the reps, and you don't use him the same way as a Swiss Army knife like you use Eddie Jackson. You know what I'm saying? So that also handcuffs Sean Desai to a certain degree. But in saying all of that, I think the Bears' running game is going to do well. I think that we should have Justin Fields. I think we should have from Justin Fields what we thought we were going to get last week. Really good play with victory. That's what I actually think that we're going to see this week. Justin Fields plays. It's a Monday night game. Monday night games are filled.
I just hate that it's on the road for the Bears.
I like that it's on the road. It can't always be peaches and cream. You got to go into somebody else's house.
Well, fire Matt Nagy, and then we might get some peaches and cream.
But I like that it's on the road. I like that it's a national game. Go out there and do like the Monday night games, and the weekday games are built on either the same narrative going on, or whoa, I didn't see that happening, or this game sucked, just in general. You know what I'm saying? Like that's usually the narrative on a weekday game, and I hope our team shows that I wasn't expecting that. Even though I expect the Bears to win nationally, you could tell that they don't expect the Bears to win, and I want the Bears to go to Heinz Field and kick that Steeler ass.
Do you have a score?
Yeah, I have the Bears winning 21-17.
Ooh, like it. Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think this Pittsburgh team is better. I think they're better coached. I think that what really worries me is the idea of maybe second half adjustments. I would expect Mike Tomlin and his crew to do it. And boy, it just seems like, especially the last few weeks, we've seen very little adjustments whatsoever. And Matt Nagy already came into this year as considered not very strong in that department to begin with. It seems like it's just like epically bad at this point, where I don't even know what they're doing at that halftime talk. And they're just like, just getting the orange peels out and let's get back out there, guys. Like, I don't get it.
The orange slices.
Yeah. Like, let's go. The other thing, too, with this matchup that worries me is that run game that I just mentioned. I don't know if they're going to step up that defense and stop it, because if the Steelers get that run game going, that's when I start feeling like it could be a long night and just one of those just really ugly nights for the Bears. I don't think it could get to embarrassing level with how the Steelers are built right now, but I think it can be an ugly loss for sure if they don't really come in there with that defensive mindset, because as much as I like the offense, it's going to be on the road. And I mean, I shouldn't say as much as I like the offense, as much as I like what Justin Fields did last weekend and the possibility of the improvement, and they get that 1-2 combo in Montgomery and Herbert. I don't think that's a small thing. And Larry Borum playing right tackle, we'll see if he maybe stabilizes that position. If he can be a starter that can be just held accountable, that he can do his job, Jason Peters has been playing better. You still have a decent interior, even though you mentioned in our pre-show Sam Mustipher having a lot of issues at that center position. Maybe as a whole, they're just a little bit better with Larry Borum, and the way they've run the ball in general, even against Tampa, they had a decent run game for as vaunted a running, stuffing defense that the Buccaneers have. And the Steelers team is similar, but they're not as good at stopping the run. If they can really get some extra big plays that maybe they didn't expect to get because of the style of running from Montgomery and Herbert. And one thing that they both share, because one is more like physical, the other has that kind of speed potential to break one and take one to the house, and Herbert, they both like find a way to make guys miss. That's the best part of their game. And it could be exciting potentially with Fields playing better and that running game. But it's going to be the crowd. It's going to be the Steelers defense that is pretty good. There's not going to be a lot of margin for error, especially if that defense is not bringing it like they did last week with that effort against the 49ers and giving up like an 80-yard screen to Deebo Samuel.
What's your score?
I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm going to go 26-20 Steelers.
Okay, you would, Trader.
I'm
joking.
Burns me. But I'm kind of in favor of the chaos because once we slowly get to our up for grabs, we got to talk about the future because this season's starting to get dead, fam.
It's funny you bring that up. Let's go up for grabs with Ryan B. Ski. I got a DM on Instagram from a gentleman, Mr. Doy, Doya, I believe. I don't know if I mispronounced that. I want to get his name right real quick. Let me pull up my Instagram so I don't butcher this gentleman's name. Devon Do, no, Dodoye, Devon Do. I believe it's probably Do. Hit me up, brother. Hit me up real quick. And said this. Shout out to this gentleman because I want to give him his props. This is how he initially hit me up. I usually don't go through like once a week I go through when someone sends those requests the chat on DMs on Instagram, right? So he hit me up. He said, "Good morning, Mr. Davis. I've watched yourself and your co-host on YouTube, and I believe you all may be selling the Bears a short base in the years past. I'm sorry. This is a new day. Let us look at it in the light. First, we have Justin Fields. Second, Jenkins is almost ready to come back. So the offensive line that was envisioned on draft day plus Peters is almost complete. Third, our Bears are only a few games out with about 9 or 10 games left to play. Fourth, there's Tampa, the Rams, Green Bay, Arizona. So that leaves 3 playoff spots open. Fifth, so he was really going through his stuff, and this is well worded. Matt Nagy and company are putting together an entirely new offensive scheme on the fly with and for Justin Fields, and it's working. 6, every team in the NFL is getting injuries right now, and the Bears' defensive starters like Mac should be coming back. Finally, and maybe the most importantly, David Montgomery and the heart and soul and fight of this team, and this team is about to clear our eye. All this in time for the playoff push. Bear down." I replied, "I hope you're right. The Bears not making the playoffs, though. Good morning to you, bro. Have a good one." He replied, "Hey, Mr. Davis, how about a gentleman's bet for one cyber beer if the Bears make the playoffs this year? My money is on the Bears sneaking in." I said, "You're on, Mr. Doe. Hope you're right.
Yeah. Get me on that drink, too.
I said
cyber one.
But it's not happening, right?" And he replied laughing. Shout out to him. We appreciate it. Also, appreciate you being a glass half full guy.
And I mean, it's not totally wrong if a ton of injuries happen.
Yeah, mathematically,
injuries happen.
This is the problem, real quick. The problem is Matt Nagy. And it's bigger than Matt Nagy, but the problem is he's saying that Matt Nagy and this offense can figure it out.
Yeah,
and
that's my biggest problem.
We know they can't now.
They can't. They're not scoring still. That's what's holding them back from a playoff run. Is they can't score.
Dude,
they're 31st in the NFL.
If they were consistently hovering around 25, 26 points a game, holla at me.
They might have won last week if they could have gotten to 26 by the time before the Niners got there.
If they were doing that, he's right. But the fact that they can't consistently score for nothing, it's just, and as of right now, it's not happening. That therefore, for me, and when I'm texting, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's like mathematically they're not out of it. But if we're using this algebra correctly, we can see they're out of it because they have 5 losses already, right? Have 5 losses. You have them having 6 by tomorrow night. Dude, if you get, I'll give them 3, Ryan. They can only get 3 more losses and get to the playoffs, basically. So we're talking about 9-8. I don't see them
or 8
only
9.
getting
You're saying,
thank you,
at the absolute lowest.
No. If I'm going off of what their record is right now.
Oh, right now, yes.
3 more losses would be 8, 9-8. Gotcha. All right, because you're not getting to the playoffs in 8-9. I don't believe so.
Unless crazy injuries happen, that's the only way.
But I mean, we still went through it. You're going to have 2 coming out of the West. You're going to have 2 coming out of the South.
They're moving. Unless Simeon is that big of an issue long term.
It didn't matter though. They had
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
The Saints are probably coming out of the South. We know Dallas is coming out of the East. We know Green Bay is coming out. The question is if it's going to be the Vikes or whatnot. But now, if you're telling me there was only one division where we clearly can see that there's only one team, that there's 2 teams coming out, I'd agree. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, all right. But we basically said there's 4 teams already in. There's only 7 spots, right? There's 4 teams in. Green Bay's in. Dallas is in. All right. So again, now when we go,
you got Cardinals in.
I was just about to say. I was just say Cardinals in, Rams in. We don't know where the Seahawks are going to be, right?
But the 49ers are ahead of the Bears right now.
Okay. Oh, then when we go to when we go to the East, they're out. We can kill the East.
But I mean, aren't the Giants just right behind them in the record standings? I mean,
they're not that far. They're not that far.
I mean, they're fighting with the Giants for a wild card spot still.
Hold on, NFL standings.
And then you look at like you said, the NFC South. I think the Saints are in a prime position to go ahead and take that wild card spot because I expect the Buccaneers to win that. And then you mentioned it with the Vikings.
No, the Giants are 2-6.
Oh,
the Giants are 2-6. So listen, the real thing is this. The real thing is this. It's everything that I just said, right? As far as
between the Saints and the Vikings, can you get ahead of one of them? And hope that the 49ers get battered by the NFC West.
This is the kicker too, Ryan. The Panthers are 4-4. The Falcons are 3-4. So they have already had their bye. So you're not even better than those 3 teams. And actually, you have the same record as the Eagles as of right now.
Yeah.
So and we have to go and look at the strength of those teams' records moving forward. And we already know the Bears have the roughest record, one of the top 3 roughest records in the league, if not the roughest. Again,
you're still playing the Ravens. You're still playing the Vikings twice. You got to play the Green Bay Packers again in Green Bay. And that's the other problem I have, too, with the idea of the Bears making the playoffs.
They haven't played the Cardinals yet.
They haven't played the Cardinals yet.
They haven't played Seattle yet.
Yep. And they're going to have Russell Wilson back by the time you play Seattle.
Right.
The one thing that I think really hurts, too, with talking about playoff run, this team is horrendous on the road. And we can't just believe that they're going to be good on the road all of a sudden. Like, they haven't been good on the road in a long time. They've lost the last 2 home games with the Packers and then the 49ers. You lose another road game, like, you don't have enough home games to make up for it, and you're so bad on the road, and you still have so many tough road games. You just can't assume that the Bears are going to be able to just string a bunch of victories together. Like, unless just major injuries are happening. Like, remember the Suns in their race to the finals? It was like Lakers lose Anthony Davis, they win. Next round, there's no. Oh, I'm blanking on his name.
Murray.
Next round, Kawhi's out, and it's like you can string a bunch of victories that way. But that's the only way I see it.
Also, remember Spider Mitchell was out. Just as far as guys you could have the doors were open. The same way with Kawhi winning it in Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Where KD was injured, then Clay went out. The same thing happened. But again, and the reason why, getting back to Mr. Doe, I brought it up was Matt Nagy, and go all the way back to the Benjamin Albright thing with Ragoul, was the fact that you got to get rid of Matt Nagy. I mean, I'm not saying that like this is cool or it's vogue. I've said it plenty of times. He seems like a good guy. But the Bears aren't getting the pudding
right now, right?
That's it. They're not getting the returns on their offense since his initial year. They have not, and it's proven that he, for right now, isn't competent in what his job is.
And we were Nagy guys when we started this.
Big time.
Like we wanted him to succeed.
Yeah,
and we're saying it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And you can still love this team, but be honest, just because you're a fan doesn't mean you have to have blind fandom. I mean, but that still doesn't mean, again, when I'm saying that, mathematically they're out of it. So I'm not saying that my boy Doe was having blind fandom.
Joe Mixon's trying to run me over, Daryl, by the way. Thank you, Joe. Shout out to you.
So go Joe. Go Joe, go. But yeah, so again, I think it's good to hear, but they should have done it last year. You wouldn't have to waste a season of Justin Fields' career. If they don't do it, it's sad.
Well, at least the report is mentioning Brian Daboll is the guy that they're most attracted to. I like that a lot. That we talked about it. If you're going to pick a guy, they need to have done at least the play calling job or the head coaching job with a ton of experience and proof.
Better if there was a head coach.
Yes, but proof that what they specialize in actually works.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that in a long time.
Or they can CEO a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the problem is asking a guy that has never CEO'd a team and his focus has been on one side of the ball now to do well on that side of the ball while also growing into a position that he may not naturally be built for as far as being the leader of an entire organization.
Did you see some of the coaching stints that Daboll has had in the past?
Mm-mm.
He's got an impressive list. I think he was in Alabama. I'm not sure if it was with Nick Saban, but he was there for a little bit. Then with New England and Bill Belichick. Now, obviously, with Buffalo, and he's been, running a terrific offense for years now with them. I mean, really developed Josh Allen, which we talked about. Do you have?
No, he was down there with them, Ryan. He was with Alabama in 2017. Okay. William and Mary, assistant coach in 97. The Browns offensive coordinator in 09 and 2010. Let me just go back.
So he was with Saban. He was with Bill Belichick. He was with some of these really good coaches.
So real quick, he was the defensive assistant coach for New England for 2020, 2001. Then became the wide receivers coach from 02 to 06. Then became the quarterback coach for the Jets from 07 to 08. The Browns offensive coordinator from 09 to 010. Miami's offensive coordinator, Kansas City offensive coordinator, New England's offensive assistant, New England's tight ends coach. Bill Belichick is really letting him get all over the whole entire the offensive defensive side of the ball. He was New England's tight ends coach from 2014 to 2016. And
wait, was he with Andy Reid in Kansas City when he stopped?
I don't know. He was Andy Reid's been there for a decade now.
He's been there for a while.
He was there. If he was there for a decade, he was there Andy Reid's first and second year. He was there only in 2012, and the record, I don't know. They were 2-14. So if this was Andy's first season. This may be the year before Andy got there.
Andy Reid was head coach in 2013.
Yeah, so it's the year, but that's why Andy Reid got the job, is what I was trying to imply. They were 2-14 when he was offensive coordinator, and he's been the offensive coordinator for the Bills since 2018.
Was that crazy Haley dude right before Andy Reid?
Yeah, and then Haley ended up being the offensive coordinator with the Steelers and having problems with Big Ben. But yeah, or was it? Wait, was Haley before or after Romeo Crennel? Because Romeo Crennel got a chance.
He got fired before, and then I think Romeo took over as interim, and then they got him, if I remember correctly.
But yeah, listen, it's good to hear. I brought up
one quick thing with the Matt Nagy though being fired. I'm not hearing Ryan Pace. Are you okay if Ryan Pace survives and Matt Nagy goes? I mean, maybe I shouldn't even say okay. Maybe it's more like that's probably what's going to happen, right? Because they don't want to hire another search firm. They're sick of doing that.
You shouldn't need a search. See, the problem with that is,
but they need it.
But no. After you had to hire a search firm, your goal then was I have to start finding connections inside of this league to where I don't have to do that again. I, as an owner in a charter franchise, should have enough connections to know who's hot and who I should be bringing in. I shouldn't have to go out and do that. That's when they talk about the end of the year and you see George Miscassi talk about self-reflection, that should have been a major self-reflection 7 years ago.
Right.
that you had to do that. I would prefer both of them gone. Ryan Pace has been better at his job than Matt Nagy. That's not saying a lot, but he has been. If they keep him,
I like how you worded that. He has been better at his job, but that doesn't mean a lot.
doesn't mean a lot because I could be
It's
better.
I
Than
totally
someone
agree with that. He's
that's
been
getting
better
D's.
at
Hey,
his job.
he gets D minuses, right? I get
Yeah.
C's, right? I'm better,
Right.
but that doesn't mean I'm killing it. I'm not
Right.
killing it. I'm just
Right.
doing better than
Not
him.
getting into Harvard.
Yeah, what's the saying? Like if me and you are getting chased by a bear, I don't have to run faster than the bear. I just have to run faster than you. That's the same thing as far as being inept. I don't have to be really good at it. I just have to be better at it than you. You know what I'm saying? So
that's right.
So I mean, you're the low hanging fruit. Don't make yourself the low hanging fruit. So yeah, he should be gone. But this seems like something that they would do. It'd be better. I know people have mentioned this. Perhaps bumping him up. And bringing in someone else to perhaps be the GM. I'm with you because to me, and when I forgot who, I think Sean Sierra said that, and I said to Sean, I said, so who's gonna be his Rick Hahn then? Because he was like, he could be Kenny Williams. I was like, who's gonna be Rick? Like, you got to show me who Rick Hahn is before I'm okay with it. Because you could bump some guys up, that doesn't mean you're gonna end up with Rick Hahn running the show.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason bumping up Kenny Williams was to keep Rick Hahn because he's one of the hottest GM candidates in all of baseball.
Yes, definitely. That was part.
I don't hear the Bears having one of the hottest.
Boy, people, it's a lot of people coming for. Yeah, I haven't heard any assistant GMs on here where like people are like, man, we got to.
Hey, you know what they doing in Chicago? Oh man, I'd be talking to one of those assistants out there.
All right, good one, Ryan. We always appreciate it. We'll be back probably this Tuesday. We'll be back. We'll see if we go live or not to give you our Bears recap. But we are going to try to give you a live show a week as we start to just come in hard hitting with the audience and also bring you a little bit of levity with some of these tragic sports situations while our teams aren't doing as well. The Bulls are, though. When we're talking about the Bears aren't doing as well as what we suspect. Also, one thing we didn't talk about to let you know how unimportant it is and how they're irrelevant is Jerry Cullerton was released by the Chicago Blackhawks yesterday. Let you just know how far on the back burner that situation is. So I guess I have to mention that before we get out of here. But Ryan, as always, man, great show. I will talk to you in a couple days. Everybody out there, don't do anything stupid before you hear from us again. And I would probably say just don't do anything stupid or real stupid in general.